recap what we were making before we had to take our quick little break. We have our tomato basil soup. So we have a whole yellow onion diced up, sauteed with some olive oil. It's about 2 tablespoons of fresh garlic, around 10 or so Roma tomatoes quartered, and about a fourth a cup of fresh basil. So these are all in our lovely soup stewing up right here. And with about a cup of chicken broth and or a cup of water with chicken bouillon. We'll add some cream in there and just a little bit, and then we'll blend it after it's kind of cooked for a little bit for our nice little basting. We are melting got our little double boiler going on, our chocolate chips with our peanut butter. This is a bag of chocolate chips with a fourth a cup of peanut butter. This is going to make the delicious chocolatey base to our peanut butter bars that we have chilling in the fridge. I'll grab those out in a little bit and we can talk more about them. But while we're waiting, let's get up on our grilled cheeses. We're going to make a roast beef and cheddar melt today using the last bit of our sourdough bread for this, because you got to have with a tomato basil soup. What is better than that than a nice little grilled cheese / melt? So we're going to slice up our sourdough bread here to make some delicious sandwiches. I was deciding whether to do like a triple grilled cheese or just, a melt. And I decided with a melt today on here. So we'll get these kind of cut up and nice and ready. And there we go. And then we're going to butter one side of each slice of our sourdough bread. So we've got our nice little bits here. So we're going to just put a little bit of butter on one side. Always try to choose the smoothest side. And I'm going to get my griddle pan starting to warm up here so that we can melt that butter in just a second and get these crisping up. I prepped up this morning. So I made the dough last night and then I let it kind of proof overnight. But I prepped up some new sourdoughs that we'll be baking up soon. I have our traditional loaf, which is probably my favorite, and then a strawberry swirl loaf and a rosemary, black pepper, and garlic loaf. So pretty yummy loaves that we'll have coming up soon. So we've got our butter on just one side of our bread, and we're going to put that side down. Get my pieces that match together. And then for our little cheddar melt, we're going to be using sharp cheddar cheese with some roast beef. Give our soup a little bit of a stir here, kind of mix it around.
Judy sent you this.
Well, thank you, Judy. We appreciate that. Okay, we're letting these just simmer and infuse those flavors together for this. We've got our sharp cheddar here on here. And that way we can get some good slices going. I don't want to take any plastic with me. Kind of perfect. Nice long ones that fit almost perfectly on our bread today. And then do kind of make this little teeny tiny piece right there. And then we're going to do a layer of roast beef for it. Now, when I do my melts, I try not to make the meat portion of it too thick because then it takes forever for the cheese to melt. And really, that's the best part is the cheese. So I'm going to put a couple slices on each one, but you don't have to go super heavy on it. That way you still get that good meltiness for it. So we've got our roast beef here. About 3 slices per each one. Kind of put on there. Here we go. And with I always try to make sure that my cheese doesn't overflow, but the meat is fine for that in the sense that it's okay if it goes over a little bit. You just don't want your cheese to drizzle over the sides because then when you're toasting it up, it'll burn on your thing. We're going to keep our griddle pan kind of nice and lower so that it will melt and cook these up, but you don't want to go too fast because sourdough is a thicker type bread. And if you heat your grilled cheese up too fast, your cheese in the middle is not going to get melted. So we've got this here, last little bit on it. Perfect. And then we're going to put our top little buttered piece of sourdough on each one for our roast beef melts for them to start kind of cooking up here. Okay, I'm gonna move this guy out of the way, and we're gonna give our chocolate and our peanut butter base here a mix and see how it is, but I'm gonna give my hands a quick rinse. So the peanut butter base in this is really important because otherwise the top layer on this peanut butter bar would be hard and firm, and a little bit of this peanut butter gives it almost like a soft peanut butter texture to it. So I've had them sitting on top of my double boiler here, which is essentially a pot with water boiling underneath. And we're going to mix it until that peanut butter and that chocolate is mixed together. And this is what we're going to drizzle over the top of our peanut butter bars that we have chilling in the fridge. Here, beautiful. And we have no chunks or anything like that, which is perfect, which means these chocolate chips are completely melted through. So I'm just going to turn that off and let that residual steam continue to cook it up through. For our peanut butter bars, I'm going to walk you through those that we made in the first part. And these are like a homemade Rice Krispie treat versus your old school peanut butter bars that you had like growing up at the school. But we made these with 1.5 cups of creamy peanut butter, a 1/2 cup of room temperature butter. We creamed those together, and then we added in 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. Mix that in there. So now you have this kind of sweetened peanut butter mixture. And then we crushed up graham crackers to make about 3 cups of graham cracker crumbs, mix it in there. I like to leave mine a little bit chunky so that it has this lovely little crunch throughout, kind of gets, breaks up the smoothness. I don't want my bars to be too smooth. Okay, we're going to take our peanut butter here that we've melted, and we're going to drizzle this over the top, and we'll spread it out for this. And I always like to just chill my bars just a little bit because it just helps it kind of firm up a little bit faster. But these are bars that we are going to keep in the refrigerator because you want that butter to be firm instead of room temperature, because then your bar will be nice and firm. Here, make sure we get all of this chocolate on there. Get it in our nice big bowl here. And then we'll spread it around, and we're going to add our couple graham cracker letters to the top. But a lot of times I'll do teddy bear or teddy bears, little graham, like Teddy, I guess they're Teddy Grahams. There we go. Teddy bear's my own little boy. That's always funny. I always said, our son's name is Theodore. We call him Teddy. And I said, we should have made his middle name Graham so he could go by Teddy Grahams. There we go. So we've got all of our chocolate peanut butter mixture out, and we're going to just spread it to the far corners all over the top of our bars here. You don't want your bars to be too thick of a chocolate layer because these are very rich. Think about homemade like Reese's like peanut butter cups. So good. So slide that up. But again, just the perfect amount in each and every bite. There we go. I'm going to rotate these just a second here. We're done with our water. And while these are cooking up, give our soup a little bit of a stir here. I'm going to mix in a little bit of cream, and we'll let that simmer together for just a minute or two before we get ready to blend it up. And then we're going to add our little graham cracker letters to the top of our little bars before our chocolate solidifies. Just a little splash here to give you that kind of rich, creamy flavor to it. You don't need a whole lot of cream to get you there. 1/4 of a cup is probably more than enough. And it always surprises me, how little you need when you use heavy cream to get that creamy richness to it. I'm going to keep this on a nice low simmer here, and we'll let that kind of cream warm up and simmer together, and then we'll blend this in just a few minutes. Okay, here are peanut butter bars. I saved some of my graham cracker letters to put on here. But like I said, I like to do little Teddy Grahams on here, but we'll see which letters we get out. We've got some N, and tea. And these are so that when you're cutting it, you can get like a perfect little, um, you know, kind of a little like square with a letter in it. A lot of times I use these when I'm making like Teddy's little snack for school. And I kind of picked out all the ones that were the letters in his name. Somehow this is a Q, but it doesn't very look like a Q very much. Looks almost like a bear. Get these guys in. Little broken ones. I got these at IKEA because I gotta love IKEA. I'm really sad. I heard the one that we normally go to in Memphis is closing down. And so now I'm like, oh no, we always have a soccer tournament there, and now I won't be able to go to my Memphis or my IKEA. But here we've got our little graham cracker letters in there, and then we'll put this in the fridge. When we're done, let it sit. It takes about 2 to 3 hours for the chocolate to kind of firm up. Now, again, we mix that peanut butter in it, so it's not going to be a completely firm chocolate. It will be smoother, which is nice because these are a refrigerated bar. But it does take a minute for it to set. And again, that's why we add that peanut butter in there, because you don't want to have, since they are cold bars, you don't want to have a really firm piece of chocolate on top of them. We'll let these, we've got that first base kind of melted up, and then we'll flip on both sides. Now we are going to blend up our soup in here to make a nice smooth kind of tomato basil bisque. Slide this over here. Back when I was a kid, I remember the first kind of time I had tomato basil soup. It was when we had moved to Nashville, because you always had tomato soup growing up, but not like the creamy tomato basil soup. But there was a bread and company, and there you could get your tomato basil soup in a sourdough bread bowl. And that was just heaven. So delicious. Okay, we're gonna scoop up our soup in here so we can blend it up and make it nice and smooth. I like to do mine in a blender because it makes it smoother, but you can definitely use a immersion blender to blend it up as well. Just a lot of times those get a little bit chunky. And I have to say, I just love my Vitamix because it really does make it very, very smooth. Here. Almost got all of these guys in here. And in this soup, we have our whole onion, about 2 tablespoons of minced up garlic, about 10 tomatoes that we quartered up, and I want to say probably between a fourth and a cup and a half a cup of fresh basil chopped up, and then some chicken bouillon water and a little splash of cream. Get this all of it in here. And we're going to get this on here ready to blend up in just a second. Make sure you secure your lid. Let me flip our sandwiches here so we can start them crisping up on the other side. I can start to hear the butter sizzle. And I like to do it twice on each side. That first side is kind of heating up the bread and melting it. And then that second time on is toasting it up so you get that perfect little crunch for it. Okay, let's get this guy blended up nice and smooth. I'm going to use my hot soup setting on my blender, which will start it out low and then it will blend it up high. And it will make it like that perfect smooth base to it. We'll get it there. Once it gets to the high here in about 10 seconds, we'll get here. We'll get through it all. Beautiful. And that is all the blending you need to do. Beautiful. Now, earlier when I added in about a cup of broth with, or water with there, you don't want to add too much liquid. You need to add some because you'll be really thick on its own. But if you add too much, then you're going to have a very watery tomato basil soup. And just look at how velvety rich and delicious this is. And that's just 1 cup of added chicken broth with about, a fourth a cup of cream to this to give you just that really nice thick texture, because when you have it, you want that nice thick soup. Makes it a little bit, rich and delicious. Set that right there. Actually, we'll use this guy. And we're going to give this a nice little stir. Perfect. And then I'm just going to keep it on nice and low for this so that it has a nice kind of light simmer. Let's check out our grilled cheeses here. Well, this is our roast beef and cheddar melt on our homemade sourdough bread. Give this a nice little toast up here. I'm going to turn it up just a smidge higher, and we'll get that nice kind of golden marks on there. And while we're waiting, let me grab my cutting board again. I want to mince up a few bits of fresh basil to top on our soup to get that nice little fresh base for it. You don't need a whole lot, but just a couple to add it because the basil we added in there is already like cooked through, so it's more mellow. And this will allow us to get that really pop of fresh basil to the top. And then before I do that, let me taste my soup, make sure I don't need to add anything else to it. Again, we added that chicken bouillon, that big scoop of it, so that's going to take care of the saltiness factor of our soup. Perfect. Doesn't need anything. And I find about a heaping spoonful, so about 4 teaspoons of chicken bouillon, helps flavor up the tomato juice and all of that as well. Here. So we've got our fresh basil on there. And get this guy just about ready on our grilled cheese here. We're going to toast it up, and I'll get ready to kind of serve this up in just a second. We'll get our plate, and we're going there. Now, the peanut butter bars, they do need to sit for a good while because if you try to cut into them right now, you'll just have a chocolatey, peanut buttery mess. But by dinner time, or really an hour, hour and a half in the refrigerator, they'll be nice and cool and perfect for enjoying. They've got this nice peanut butter layer to them with that chocolatey goodness on top.
You have a question? Where do you get the pot that you make in the kitchen?
So this is a Staub Dutch oven. I believe it's from Williamson Sonoma. My mom gave it to me as a Christmas present one year. It actually, the lid has a Christmas tree on it, but you don't use the lid that much when you're making soup. But I really like this Dutch oven. So I have several. I have a lot of Le Creuset and then Staub, but this is the cast iron, a smooth cast iron base for it. So it's really lovely in soups to get that nice kind of caramelization when you're sauteing up your vegetables that I really, really love. And if you're going to do an immersion blender, you don't have to worry so much about nicking your enamel in there when you have a cast iron base to it versus that coated and cast iron like a Le Creuset has. Okay, these are looking mighty fine. Our last little toasting up here on there to get our nice grilled cheeses nice and ready for this. And these are, again, our nice kind of little cheddar melts here for that. I'm going to give it just a smidge of help with a little bit of steam to get that cheddar cheese just a little bit of a heat here. And it doesn't need much to get you that ooey gooey goose like deliciousness here. We've got our spoon for that. We've got our gorgeous peanut butter bars here with our little letters on there. The base of our peanut butter bars, that's where like you're going to get all that great flavor in it. 1.5 cups of creamy peanut butter with a 1/2 cup of butter. And then we added in 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, cream those up together, and then 3 cups of graham cracker crumbs. And I like my graham cracker crumbs to be coarsely chopped so that you get this nice little crunch in there. Kind of breaks up the monotony of a very smooth bar. These are looking fabulous. And then we melted for our top layer a whole bag of chocolate chips with 1/4 cup of peanut butter, which will give you that semi-soft base for the like the peanut butter topping. So when you bite into it, it won't be rock hard. Let's get ready to serve up here. We've got our grilled cheese here. It's looking pretty fantastic. Turn this guy off. And I'll bring these over. Beautiful. Nice kind of golden mark. And we'll get our soup off and we'll be ready to serve up here in just a second. Okay. Let's get our grilled cheese cut in half. Slide in there. For lunch today, We have our roast beef and cheddar melt on our homemade sourdough bread. We use sharp cheddar cheese and roast beef and just a little bit of butter on there for that lovely little crisp up on it. And we are going to be serving it with our homemade creamy tomato basil soup. This is made with onions, garlic, fresh tomatoes, fresh basil, some chicken broth, cream, and then you just puree it up into this lovely, wonderful bisque like texture. To add an extra little splash of creaminess, you can take your cream and you can give it a slight little drizzle around the top. Again, nice little pop of things. And then we'll top it off with some fresh basil for a nice little burst of fresh, like herby flavor to it. And then when our bars have set up in the fridge, we will have our creamy, delicious peanut butter bars made with peanut butter, powdered sugar, butter, graham cracker crumbs, and chocolate. And that is it for a really delicious treat. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made, our creamy tomato basil soup with our peanut butter bars, and you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my hex cut griddle pan, my Staub Dutch oven, as well as my knives and cutting boards and all the other things that I use in the kitchen for you guys to check out. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.